Slapjack, T-Bar, Mace, Reckoning, and their leader, Mustafa Ali. This is Retribution.
Every appearance, every attack sends chills up and down the spine of every WWE superstar.
They are judge, jury, and executioner. No one's been able to stop this group for months now.
What was up with those names? You remember hearing them the first time? What was the reaction?
It was.
It was very difficult to breathe.
The fatal thing about it, it never had a why.
Cringe.
When it comes to building factions, WWE have always had a very hit-or-miss track record. For every major success like The Shield or The New Day, you get an absolute stinker like Retribution. A faction so bad, it nearly destroyed the careers of everyone involved in it. So what exactly happened? How can a group that was meant to take over WWE end up becoming the laughingstock of the entire wrestling community instead? In order for us to truly understand how Retribution flopped, we have to go back to the August 3rd, 2020 episode of Raw when the group first came to existence. During the show, strange technical issues would interrupt several segments and matches, with backstage personnel believing these to be deliberate disruptions and not just some random glitch. Later that night, it was revealed what or who was causing all of this, as security footage taken outside of the WWE Performance Center showed several hooded entities dressed in black throwing Molotov cocktails at the generator. While this moment was meant to be a surprise for everyone watching, for whatever reason, WWE decided to spoil the bit before Raw even went live. Regardless, on SmackDown that same week, the mysterious group, now being called Retribution, would invade the ring and cause absolute mayhem, terrorizing everybody from the commentators to the cameraman and even the extras watching ringside. Nobody was safe. The crew left their mark, literally, by vandalizing the ring with spray paint and destroying the ropes with a freaking chainsaw. And with that showcase of destruction, Retribution had officially arrived in WWE. This new faction instantly caught the attention of fans, with some even comparing them to another faction with so much wasted potential, the Nexus. The group would continue their hijinks the week after, sending a lone Performance Center security guard home before smashing the entrance door with a cinder block. And then, a little bit later, they were found trashing a car of some unfortunate WWE employee in the parking lot. Things would only escalate further on SmackDown though, as the group started targeting WWE superstars, particularly Big E and John Morrison before the start of their match, which ended up getting restarted anyway. But in an attempt to prevent Retribution from interfering again, WWE decided to send out the entire SmackDown locker room on ringside to be on guard duty. The plan would backfire big time however, as the masked assailants used the opportunity to destroy the entire backstage of the Performance Center, assaulting the referees and anyone who stood their way. And by the time the superstars were set back to intervene, they had already hightailed their way out of the building, a hit-and-run job as Michael Cole aptly pointed out. With all these attacks happening every week, you'd think that a billion-dollar company like WWE would try and tighten their security more, which clearly did not happen, as on the very next Raw, Retribution was able to take over the production truck and mess up the live broadcast this time around. Things would come to a head on the SmackDown before SummerSlam. The same night, WWE debuted the Thunderdome. During a tense standoff between Braun Strowman and The Fiend, Retribution would appear out of nowhere and surround the ring, prompting The Fiend to use his vanishing powers and leave Braun Strowman alone in the ring. Strowman tried his best to fend off the masked assailants, but the numbers game was just too much even for the monster among men. Fortunately, he would get some much needed backup as the rest of the locker room came out and were able to successfully quell Retribution's rampage for the first time in weeks. With SummerSlam fast approaching, many speculated that the group would be heavily involved in the big pay-per-view, possibly even interfering in the WWE title match. However, in a surprising turn of events, Retribution would not show up or even get mentioned at all during the show. And after their unexpected absence, Retribution would resume their antics on the Raw after SummerSlam, this time launching a brutal attack on the Mysterios and then on the Street Profits and Andrade a week later. But with all of these seemingly random attacks and disruptions week after week, one big question still remains unanswered. Why are they doing all of this? Well, on the September 14th edition of Raw, Retribution would finally peel back the layers behind their motivations, saying,
"We once believed that our time at a performance center would lead us to fame and wealth. We prepare to show you exactly who we are while we gut your reality."
This promo, however, drew the ire of another faction in the Hurt Business, who offered their services to Adam Pearce in order to get rid of their retribution problem. And we wouldn't have to wait long to see a confrontation between the two factions, as later that night, they would collide in an epic brawl after the masked assailants decided to crash the match between Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee. The show would end with both Lee and McIntyre doing a tope, taking out everybody on the outside. By this point, the group had completely stopped showing up to SmackDown, making their whole operation brand exclusive for some reason. Regardless, after that wild ending on last week's Raw, the core 5 members of Retribution came out to the ring sporting new, more unique masks and revealed that they've somehow been signed by WWE, even though everybody and their mother knew that they're already NXT superstars. And before they were able to finish their cryptic monologue, they were given a taste of their own medicine as the Hurt Business stormed the ring, forcing the faction to retreat temporarily. This turned out to be a trap, however, as the rest of the unnamed goons swarmed the 4 men, overwhelming them with the numbers game. Because of this, a 6-man tag team match was made for that night's main event, marking Retribution's first match since arriving in WWE. Unfortunately, we wouldn't get a proper conclusion to their actual match, as Retribution got disqualified after an illegal cheap shot to Bobby Lashley, leading to another premeditated assault on the 4 men. Things did not go Retribution's way this time around though, as the rest of the Raw locker room, led by Drew McIntyre, came to the aid of the Hurt Business, successfully fending off their masked adversaries. As good as it was that the group finally has an actual feud, while also becoming the focal point of the whole show, online discourse surrounding the faction weren't too positive. Fans can't help but point out the atrocious looking masks that made them look like wish versions of fictional villains rather than intimidating. And then there were the new names, which also got heavily scrutinized, and it's not hard to see why. Anyway, Retribution would again go missing for the 3rd straight pay-per-view in a row, Clash of Champions, but with good reason this time. And after a week's worth of absence, Retribution returned on the October 5th edition of Raw and even added someone new to their ranks. As it would turn out, Ali was the leader of Retribution all along, and with Hurt Business being down 1 man, they would easily get demolished by the masked vigilantes. The following week, it was revealed during the 2020 WWE Draft that the group would stay on Monday nights, keeping their fight with the system brand exclusive yet again. Interestingly though, one of the core members, Retaliation, aka Mercedes Martinez, was missing from the draft graphic. The real reason being was that she asked and was quietly removed from the group due to frustrations with the name change. Post-draft, Retribution didn't waste any time going after Raw's big new additions to the roster, The Fiend and Alexa Bliss. However, before they were able to attack the duo, The Fiend would use his vanishing powers yet again, leaving Retribution vulnerable for an attack by an incoming Hurt Business. This then transitioned into a huge 8-man tag team match, which ended in a surprising loss for the group via submission no less. To add insult to injury, Bray would return after the match and single-handedly destroy every member of Retribution. Later, Ali tried his best to salvage his faction's credibility by cutting a passionate promo, and in doing so, revealed that he was also the hacker who was exposing everybody's secret on SmackDown during the onset of the pandemic era. While speaking about this in a later interview, he revealed that his initial pitch would have seen the hacker angle playing a bigger role in Retribution, with it being sort of their special power. This would have explained how they were able to easily invade the Performance Center and freely do all of the disruption they did. Unfortunately, it was reduced to this one single line in the promo, and the hacker was never referenced again after that. Going back, at the Hell in a Cell kickoff show, Ali would challenge the Hurt Business to a one-on-one match with a representative of each faction's choosing, which turned out to be Slapjack and Bobby Lashley. To nobody's surprise, he would squash Slapjack, extending Retribution's losing streak yet again. The feud between the two factions would finally culminate the following night on Raw as they battled in an 8-man elimination tag team match. Retribution tried every tactic in the book, even faking a demonic possession at one point, but after being down 2-1, Ali just gave up and got himself disqualified, leading to another victory for the Hurt Business. At this point, the masked vigilantes have lost all momentum, failing to win a single match since they got signed. And so, the group decided to go after a smaller fish this time, setting their sights on Ricochet and assaulting him during his match with Tucker Knight. Turns out, this was exactly the pivot they needed, as Ali would later pick up a much needed victory against Ricochet in singles action, followed by a huge tag team W over the dysfunctional members of the Raw Men's Survivor Series team. November 17, 2020 marked an important date for Retribution, as they were somehow able to hack WWE's Twitter account, and with it, they would release a series of tweets showing the motivations of each member for joining the group. They later explained this in detail as well on an episode of Miss TV on Main Event, while also randomly beating up the gobbledygooker just because. After this, Retribution turned their attention back to Ricochet, with each member taking turns beating on the poor guy in an attempt to get him to join their faction. Meanwhile, Reckoning would face a problem of her own in the form of Dana Brooke, who managed to steal a victory while also causing her to lose the mask in a botch during the match. This ended up pissing off Ali, who made his frustrations known after. And then a week later, Reckoning and Slapjack lost in mixed tag team action to Ricochet and Dana Brooke, inciting their leader even further. Ricochet would make his stance crystal clear on the December 28th edition of Raw, blindsiding Ali with a recoil after their match. After failing to convince Ricochet to join the cause, the group decided to move on to a feud with the New Day, as Ali was still bitter about losing his spot to Kofi at Elimination Chamber 2 years ago. Unfortunately, Retribution ended up losing 2 consecutive tag team matches to the New Day, and as the losses continued to pile up, Ali became more and more unhinged, constantly berating his crew for not getting the job done. On the Fastlane 2021 kickoff show, tensions would reach a boiling point as Ali battled Matt Riddle for the United States title, which he lost, and after the match, he would once again blame it on the rest of Retribution. This time, however, Reckoning and Slapjack finally had enough as they decided to walk out on their leader. And to put the final nail on the coffin, Mason T-Bar would then deliver a double chokeslam on Ali, officially disbanding Retribution for good. Post-Retribution, Mason T-Bar continued to team together, ditching their ridiculous masks entirely and actually picking up some decent victories before getting split up in the 2021 WWE Draft. Meanwhile, Reckoning and Slapjack definitely got the shorter end of the stick as they were immediately taken off TV and never reappeared again up until their release in November of 2021. And as for their leader, Mustafa Ali, well, he would move on to teaming with Mansoor, which also didn't see a lot of success before bouncing around the mid to lower card as a singles act, never really getting that consistent push he deserves. So how bad was Retribution actually? If I was to rate this faction on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. Let me explain why. I honestly think the concept behind Retribution had a lot of potential, especially with some really talented members involved. It's just that WWE Creative somehow managed to execute it in the worst way possible, giving the main cast atrocious looking masks coupled with some of the worst names in WWE history definitely hurt the faction's credibility, but it wasn't even the one that killed them entirely, no. The real death sentence for this faction was losing every single match from the very beginning. While it was cool seeing 2 heel factions beat the crap out of each other, having them feud with the Hurt Business that early into their run was a huge mistake. The Hurt Business was a relatively new faction at that point, and it was clear from the get-go which faction was more over, so Retribution were made to look like chumps by losing every match to them. Instead, what they should have done is continue to pick on and gang up on other singles stars, kinda like what they did with Ricochet. Also, the hacker should have been incorporated into the act from the very beginning, as it would have given the group that unique edge it was missing. But hey, looking at the bright side,
Nothing.
anyway, if you watched this video all through the end, let me know by saying justice for Retribution in the comments below. And if you wanna see the biggest bust in WWE history, check out the next video in your screen. See you there.